Okay, welcome to this episode of Ask the Expert. Today I'm joined by Cormac Whelan, all the way from sunny Coventry. So thanks very much for your time today, Cormac. It's a pleasure to have you.
No problem. Thanks for inviting me, Rob.
So for those who may not be aware of who you are, give us a bit of a background on your kind of education, your how you kind of got started in coaching and led to this kind of position today.
Okay, yeah. Well, I started out in rugby and Gaelic football and hurling growing up in Ireland. I went to, my first degree was sports management, where I managed to, in Athlone, I basically, through that, I got into a lot of coaching there in Gaelic games. So I started coaching like senior teams or kind of youth teams from about 19. So quite early, and that gave me a real good passion for it. As I went through and I finished my first degree, I realised kind of wanted to get more into kind of the science and the fitness side of it. So I applied to St Mary's University in Twickenham, London, got in there and started another undergraduate degree in strength and conditioning science. So from there, opportunities just rolled out. Like we had such a big emphasis on Olympic weightlifting in our course. So that you're just throwing in head first on that one. I got some good experience, great experience. Then I got an internship over in Canada with the Canadian Institute of Sport, and luckily enough, I got in with the heavyweight, rowing heavyweights, the Canadian heavyweights who had just won the Olympic gold the year before. So that was really good. The atmosphere was quite intense, and they're building up to the World Championships again. From there I kind of went out and I worked for some small teams around London. I got into an intern or a lower level paid job in Oxford United for their youth academy. So I was basically training their scholars that were trying to look for professional contracts, and also building athletic pathway from basically under 6 up to under 18. From there I ended up out in India, out in the middle of nowhere, basically in a state called Orissa. Started out kind of developing their sports science section. It's a new organisation basically that was based on developing grassroots and pathways for underprivileged and rural children. It was one of these ones where their local hero was a Commonwealth gold medalist called Ravi Kumar. It seemed a bit strange that in the middle of nowhere with underprivileged kids that they were big into weightlifting, but that was their passion, so we went with it. We built on what they were passionate about, and we created a weightlifting academy in the school, and kind of really developed on from there into Centre of Excellence. I ended up coaching for the state and went to the nationals a couple of times in India, and I'm back in the UK now and kind of looking forward to what's coming next in the coaching.
Cool. So I'm really keen to highlight your kind of experiences in India, because I think it's a really unique part of your coaching journey, but also a really different experience in terms of what we've had so far on the show. So you kind of mentioned you were out in Orissa, and it's kind of a pretty underprivileged area. So what was the kind of situation that you were going into? So tell me about how you ended up, the kind of process you ended up out in India, and what you kind of expected versus what the reality was.
I guess I was coming to the end of my contract in Oxford United. I'd never even thought about India before, but I was just looking away and I seen it. Within 24 hours, I was offered a job, and within a month, I was in India. It was Pro Sport Development was the organisation. They'd started out, literally very fresh, a couple of months before I even arrived. The organisation started, and they're two Indian guys that started up together, and they came over to Loughborough to do their masters. What they realised, and their passion was that for such a big country like India, there's such a little amount of pathways for youths to be developed. They really kind of depend on like a natural talent or whatever's there. So got thrown in. Almost like the Jungle Book kept on coming to my mind. I was literally living in a shack in the middle of a jungle. had to cycle 5 kilometers so we started basically, for when I first got there, my first week was like I just observed. I just went and seen what they're doing already. And so, you know, the kids are quite proactive. They got up in the morning and done like morning exercises. So I went down and seen all this. Got to know the local weightlifting coaches, and you know they're intrigued because you know first time I think they'd probably been introduced to someone outside of India. So yeah, it was a classroom by day, a weightlifting gym by evening, and rusty old bars, iron plates. Don't know if you've ever seen videos, but the Indians have a strange technique where they have two people on the side and they catch the bars at fault.
Yeah, I noticed that. I
Yeah.
wouldn't volunteer for that one myself.
No, it's definitely a strange one. But you know, I'm pretty sure the reason behind it is because, you know, as a whole country, they're not that well off, and you know, the sport of weightlifting actually is probably more predominant in the poorer areas. And I think it's literally just like, you know, they know the value of that equipment and they don't want it to break. I don't think it's
So it's more
more
the
than that.
equipment than the lifter.
Yeah, it's not to do anything to do with lifter. It's saving the weights.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So,
So,
what
you
what
know, got in.
ages
I took,
of athletes are you working with?
what was that?
What ages of athletes were you working with?
Oh, we're working from about 12 years old up to, originally it was up to about 17. Once we kind of got up and running, we got some lifters from other clubs who were intrigued by the training because we were coming in with a different philosophy of training. Um, so we ended up getting a range from like 12 to 20 with some like absolute beginners who, you know, just interested in a sport that was happening in their school to international athletes who were, you know, winning youth medals at an international stage. So it was a really good mix and quite vibrant kind of place.
Fantastic. And so you kind of mentioned a little bit so far. So what were the kind of challenges you faced in terms of that situation?
Um, I'd say three big ones. I'd say first would have been communication. Like this is where I was. Like Hindi and English is like India's first languages. But where I was, they had their own local language, so they didn't even know Hindi. Never mind English, so they had their own one. So you know, I kind of used chalk a lot. I used a lot of stickman drawings to kind of show what I meant, and I guess doing my own demonstrations with them. But over time, it became a mix of. I learned a bit of their local language, so it was a mix of half English words, half Oriya words, and yeah, that was, you know, first 6 months that was quite a bit of a struggle, but that made me, I think, even more proficient in my demonstrations. So it was really down to kind of watch and do. Uh, the next bit would have been equipment. I mean, like it was minimal. You know, I mean, when we first got there was probably 12 kids interested. After 3 or 4 months, there was 30 kids in the program, and it kept growing up to like 60. And equipment was poor and limited. So we got creative. You know, one thing is the Indians are very resourceful. You know, we went out and we made training plates out of plywood. Do you know what I mean? We just cut it out, glued it all together, started using that. We got local welders to build squat frames for us, squat racks. We got shoes. We got like all canvas shoes. We got local shoemakers to put rubber heels on them. So, you know, it was very kind of makeshift, but it did. You know, it worked. And all you need is that kind of like, where, you know, we see all the best gear on the shops and in the shops all the time. But for them, it's like just to have a pair of weightlifting shoes, you know, that makes it a bit special for them. So the last bit would have been nutrition. That was an ongoing battle. You know what I mean? It's like I said, it was a very underprivileged area. They're in a kind of it'd be a boarding school, but it's not in its, I guess, kind of stature of how we have boarding schools over here. It was more like it was kind of funded by a charity that these kids were taken from tribal villages and housed for schooling. So, do you know what I mean? Protein was non-existent in their meals. It was all beans and dal and whatever, and abundance of rices, mountains of rices. So yeah, to be able to change their diet, not just, well, part of it was getting it in, but the other part was their taste. You know what I mean? We almost had to train them how to eat properly. I had a motto which stuck well. Do you know what I mean? It was just like eat big, lift big, because it was literally like that they weren't used to eating the quantities that they needed.
So, what was a typical day for you when you were out there?
Up at 5 a.m. Down, we used to do morning sessions. So depending on the age groups, we go from doing just general kind of body conditioning, or just out running, doing a bit of even sports. You know what I mean? Getting them out playing volleyball or something like that, just to get them active and work on a bit of speed, and you throw in your coordination work in the midst of having a bit of fun with them. Then you go back in the afternoon. So during the daytime is developing the programs. I was kind of developing the coaches. So I was training some local kids who are interested in it to get into the program. So we're developing coaching programs so that they could go into more schools. And then back in the evening, and then you do because of the different levels and the age groups, you did 3 hours of training. 3 or 4 hours of training at an hour and a half slots. So you'd have your beginners, you'd have your intermediates, you'd have your senior lifters. Senior by standard rather than age, I'd say. But the program really expanded over 2.5 years. So we ended up getting a centre of excellence going, and that changed my day completely, because we had 8 residential weightlifters where they lived on the campus with us. So they're up for studying between 6 and 8 or 6.5, 7. They go have their breakfast, then they go do a 2-hour morning session. Then they go and we kind of got some tutors over, so they'd have their kind of private tutor, then doing studies for 4 or 5 hours, then back in for a 2 or 3 hour training session in the evening, eat, sleep, very, very routine in the academy of it. So,
wow, I mean it makes you think, doesn't it, when we think about some of the, on one hand the professional coaches over here and the resources we have, but then even the grassroots. Grassroots football and rugby clubs have better resources than you're talking out there, and you created a centre of excellence out of it.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is understanding the basics. You can add in. There's obviously a lot of technology out there, but if you've got a sound understanding of the principles of development, and in a very kind of holistic way, not just the training element, but what does it mean in your whole 24 hours, in your whole week, in your whole year, month or year. So for us, the approach, we knew very much about kind of not putting too much pressure on, going over there. For when I started doing weightlifting, it was the means to an end, in terms of it was to provide strength for them to go out and play another sport. Once I got into Olympic lifting for a sport, it became something a lot more where you had to engage them and you had to make it fun for them, and so I think the idea of creating the academies and the centre of excellence, it's just looking at how to develop confidence, and really just letting that youth fulfill their own potential. That's really what we were doing. That was the main focus, was anyone who had talent, just support them all the way.
It's fantastic, really, because I know, actually, as you said, the standard of lifters that, when eventually you left, there were some seriously high level lifters that were lifting there.
Yeah. We got some great success. There's great success in standards. We from starting a club, there was it was a program in a school, which then we turned into a club, and we ended up being one of the best clubs in the state. Where by the last championships last year, before I left, we were the best team, both boys and girls. It got to a stage where, like I was saying, you got a 12-year-old in there, and they're lifting with an international gold medalist. So it's quite an inspiring place to be for someone who started out in the sport. So yeah. And that's why we had to, we got a lot more coaches over. We got there was 3 weightlifting coaches at one stage under that I was kind of guiding. and you need that different level of kind of scenarios. You can't have 60 lifters in the gym, but you can't also have the same philosophy or the same training patterns and kind of even the energy. Do you know what I mean? It can't be too joking around and fun for the seniors, but it can be as light and easy going as you want for the people who are just trying to start it out.
And all this in a room with one light bulb, is that right?
Yeah, oh yeah. God, did I? Oh God, I tell you what, you're just flashback memory there. The ceilings, you wouldn't really have to jump too much to touch the ceiling. But even at that stage, they had fans that came down about half a meter. So I mean, like there'd be a couple of inches between your head and the fan. And I remember putting my hand into the fan doing a snatch one day. So that was that was a bit of a shocker.
It's funny, isn't it, when you think about some of the conditions I guess coaches complain about here, but you kind of think, if you were to pick some, like you kind of said about the influence of technology and actually, just knowing the basics, actually, if you were to pick a lot of coaches out of, a British setting and put them into that, they'd almost go, what do you want me to do here? Like, I can't
Yeah,
work here. But actually,
yeah,
when that's all you have to work with, you've got to find a way to make it work.
yeah. I think you're like, I wasn't that long at university going over there, so big and bold ideas kind of going in, but one of the greatest things that I learned was old school coaching. Still has its place. You can come in with fresh ideas, and you do have there's a lot of benefit to modern technology and even modern ways of coaching, but old school coaching is a bit of maybe a tough mentality, but it's a very rigorous kind of, this is, stick to it and it'll work. You know what I mean? So I think you're right. If they came over here, it'd be a new process, and they'd be a student back again.
So, how do you feel that your experiences out in India shaped you as a coach? What did you take away from it? What things did it enhance? How did it change your perspectives?
Um, like I was talking about communication, but that wasn't just on a language barrier. That was on a coaching level as well. So yeah, that idea that you don't have to. Because of the language barrier, I made my English very simplistic, and in coaching, that was very simplistic, and I think that helped a lot because you can overtalk a lot when you're coaching.
Mm.
So I think the idea of really breaking it down into more kind of words that they can associate with. Like we've got kind of I'm just trying to think of sorry, just like a kind of term that we'd probably use in weightlifting that actually contradicts what you're doing. Um, yeah, like if you're talking about kind of getting under the bar, a lot of people will say like kind of push the bar, like if it's in a jerk, you're talking about pushing that bar up when actually you're dropping under it. But I think a lot of the terminology over here is kind of used like even push press. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like, but we're so used to saying it because it's taught to us that way that we continue it on as coaches, but it almost negates what you're actually doing.
Mm-hmm. I guess in that room you're definitely dropping under it.
Yeah. So yeah, simplicity of communication is a massive thing, and just working with kind of the athletes, working with what they can do rather than what you think they can do, I think is a big thing. Like we went in with an idea of that, anyone can achieve, and yeah, that was down to the athletes, and they showed it more than we could ever imagine they would.
And did they rise to that? So I guess you kind of come from a Western culture, come in here and you don't know necessarily the backgrounds of all these guys, but was it the case that when an opportunity was handed to them, they all beat your arm off, or was there differences in the way they approached it?
Well, they've got a lot of respect for their elders over there, so any decisions was always gone back to whoever their guardian was or their parent. So yeah, they're always very grateful about it. They're very they're not cocky at all in their nature. I guess the idea that sport in India is still considered leisurely. Do you know what I mean? For someone to kind of, we had battles even kind of getting the centre of excellence idea across that they would be privately tutored so that they'd be out of a traditional school setting because education's so strong in their culture. And so to try and kind of get the view across to their parents that the whole philosophy that, we're developing the person. Yes, they're coming to achieve in sports, but that will only benefit them as a person in the future. So the children will jump at it, but the elders, like their teachers or their parents, were actually more the ones to convince.
Mm. And am I right in thinking you had a bit of a kind of challenge or barrier in terms of getting the girls to participate?
No, actually, total opposite. We had it was probably a 60-40 split, girls heavy.
Wow.
So yeah, I think something we really created a team atmosphere over there. So the academy, like the idea that there was an after school club and academy, do you know what I mean? Like when I was saying about okay, so the beginners were their group, but in terms of intermediate and a senior group, we left that decision down to not just skill level, but almost like how like they're approaching the sport, the youths are approaching it. So, if they're there and they're having fun and, they're not, you can tell by their demeanor that they're not too serious about they're not bothered if they stick an extra 5 kg on the bar or whatever. They're just kind of there for the fun of it. That was almost as much of an indicator to keep them in the intermediate group rather than put them in the advanced group where it'd be a little bit more, I guess, performance orientated sessions. But that builds to an atmosphere. So like it's treated as a team, and it's very much associated with female participation. That if you can create that kind of family orientated, team orientated atmosphere, that there's it's a lot more inclusive, and I think that gets them involved a lot better.
So obviously you left the program. What sort of state is it in now over there? Are you still kind of loosely involved, or?
Yeah, so I do some consulting for them, especially around the coach development. So one of the things we were doing was like there's so many talented school leavers that were kind of struggling with employment. So we're still working a lot with getting them involved in local levels coaching, and even kind of doing coach development for other sports academies around India. So yeah, I'm still involved in that. The project that I left, to be sustainable, it had to be minimized. So the center of excellence is it's not there, but the academies and the schools are there. So it's really good in that terms, because some of our weightlifters who are finished, that were winning medals, they're now coaches in some of the extra schools. Like it was that's really what we wanted out of it. It was the idea of I guess like a long-term athlete development, and in a way that like the end goal might not be that you have to be the best athlete, but that you continue in the sport somehow. So it's really great to see that some of them have got to achieve national or international level, but for me it's even a great thing that they're gone back in to be coaches.
I think that's a big the kind of issue that I have with the whole LTAD model is it's very much focused on elite sport, isn't it? It's like, if out of these 10,000 kids we get this one kid to elite sport, it's we've succeeded. It's like, hey, but you just lost 9,999 kids.
Yeah.
And that now they've kind of pinned on, and we'll retain them as like an afterthought kind of thing. Actually, that's 9,999 coaches, officials, referees, who you've got potential for the future.
Well, we're trying to get even from the start there was like a 20-year-old with us, and we were trying to get him his coaching badges. We're trying to upskill him, and it's all about you can't bank on it too much. You can plan to achieve in your sport, but the worst could happen. You could get injured or whatever. So we're trying to give him an outlet for whenever he does leave the sport. 20 is still quite young. He's only getting into the senior categories really. But a lot of their philosophy was like you can't be a coach and an athlete at the same time. It's a different philosophy. It's almost like a retirement kind of job, where we're trying to build it so that to be honest, coaching is just understanding. Do you know what I mean? It's just like kind of getting that grounding of understanding of your own sport. So we're trying to kind of catch it early, giving them even leadership skills. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have to be the full coaching badge or the full skill set, but the idea that they could run a basic warm-up or a basic session based on principles. So yeah, we were trying to incorporate it so that even if they left the sport at 16, that they might continue into coaching.
Okay. And you kind of mentioned a lot of those guys who obviously kind of left the program in terms of being at the end of the age groups and who've now reinvested. What's the Is that for them? Has that resulted in like employment, or are they doing those jobs voluntarily? What's the kind of situation for them?
So it was basically the Kale Vikas project where we did the weightlifting. That was a project for our company or our organization, and it was in joint with Graham Vikas, which is a very big, it's like top 100 world charities that really work with village development and rural development in India. So they have their own skills, and they have taken on a lot. They've 4 schools, so they've taken on our ex-athletes basically, and given them PE teacher slash weightlifting coach jobs. So they're paid. So that's great to see that one. Some of the other ones, like there's some benefits to how they have their system over in India. It can be a bit elitist in terms of if you won, you'll be rewarded. But I guess that was the benefit of us having a good academy. So like now that a lot of the students have won state, national, or international medals, they actually have a lot more opportunities to get into a job or get into their next level of education. So there's a lot of benefit to what we built up in terms of what they're going to do after lifting.
That was kind of the premise, wasn't it? Like you said, you're trying to convince the coaches that there was going to be a reward in getting involved in the sport aspect of things. So
yeah,
just tick that box. So
yeah, big time. Yeah.
Now, obviously, you come back into more of a Western society. So what's your coaching philosophy in terms of coaching youth athletes at the moment? What's your approach to it?
I'm a very holistic approach person, so it's like it is as much about developing the person as it is the skills. I think at a young age you do have to have a bit of an autocratic style. Do you know what I mean? I mean, if they get in and just do, and then so if you have the outline, they can have fun. They don't have to think about it. It can be a bit challenging being the same coach for the same athletes all the way through, because as an autocratic, they will look at you for the answers in a bit of a way, or for a direction. If you're to kind of get it into a bit more of a democratic style, which I think is the best way to go forward as they get into adults and get especially more elite, where their feedback is probably more important than what you think's going on. It can be difficult when you give them a bit of a program, they start training, and you want them to feedback. Was it a good lift? Was it a bad lift? How did the session go? That can be difficult when they're used to you telling them that was a good lift or that was a bad lift.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, it can be difficult to hold on to the same athletes as a coach all the way through the development stages. But I think the idea that you can, again, the holistic approach about educating them as they get older and as they develop their skills and mental ability to analyze. I think to look at the bigger picture, to look at how that it's not just in the gym. It's what are you doing before the gym? How are you sleeping? How are you eating? The whole picture really.
So kind of an overall education rather than just the kind of technical coaching.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, I think weightlifting is a very disciplined sport. You can't miss a trick in terms of nutrition, psych, and the physical training. I think some of the other sports out there, they're so skill based that some of the other aspects around being an athlete can be kind of neglected by some players. I think the best elite players, you just listen to any interview or any biography they've written, it's their life. They really approach it from the second they wake up till the second they go to bed.
So what or who have been your biggest influences as a coach?
I'd say one of the first ones was the head S&C coach in Oxford United, called Alistair Lane. He was an ex-squaddy. He was a really good influence on me, and the reason was that he kind of just gave me a bit of confidence in what I was doing, in my own beliefs. He was very much kind of like, you're educated, you're not going to hurt them. Do you know what I mean? Your opinions and your thought process are there. So he just gave me the confidence to just go in and do. Do you know what I mean? Like trial and error in a bit of a way, but the only way you'll know as a coach if your programs work out or if your philosophy works out is by going full force at it. So that was great, and I definitely put that idea forward to any other coaches that I've mentored or been a part of. That just go in. If it works, right. If it doesn't work, at least it doesn't work, or you can tinker with it. Another coach actually over in India. He was the youth coach for that lifter Ravi Kumar, who was a Commonwealth gold medalist back in 2010. He gave me quite an insight of I thought he was a genius at one stage. He'd managed to pick out these lifters in competition and get them to lift 15, 20 kg more than what I would have expected, banking on what they'd be doing in training and previous. But it wasn't genius at all. But what it was just a bit of belief in the athletes, and I think that's a big thing. It's like if you're in a role as a coach where you can have quite a lot of control. I think it's important to realize that your expectations, you might even cap them on your athlete. They might be a lot better than what you think they're.
Absolutely. So, what do you kind of consider your kind of biggest success to date in coaching?
It was part of being out in India. The last championship that I was involved in at the end of 2014, the centre of excellence that we developed was quite a good gym. So we actually got to hold it was a good facility. So we got to hold the state championships that year for Orissa. And prior to it, I do sports psychology is a big interest of mine. So, I used it to the advantage of, familiarity of your own gym, and I really kind of got the lifters, and we did about 4 kind of mental training, I called it, because I don't think they would have got the word psychology. The English wasn't that good yet. But yeah, mental training, and I did some, I guess, a bit outlandish stuff with them, but I got them to fall backwards off ledges into the hands of other lifters and stuff like that. But the idea was to, trust the technique and be brave and just go for it, just dive off, you'll be fine. So that same idea if they're going for, a new lift or a new personal best. And it was great because we ended up getting 8 gold medals out of that with 3 state records. And one of the best quotes from one of the female lifters was, she told me after she won her medal, she goes, "I just told myself that this is my platform, this is my home," and she just went out and smashed it. So that whole idea that your skills there, you can put yourself in your own way of succeeding. So I think that gave me confidence about. Like I said, I actually had the privilege of being the Orissa state coach at the nationals, which meant I was actually on the day I was coaching lifters that weren't even my own. They were from other clubs in the state.
Did you speak your language?
Yeah. So, but that idea that you can actually give someone a lot of confidence just by kind of calming them down and giving them very positive feedback, that helped loads. And we ended up actually winning the boys team won the All India team trophy that year. So
wow.
that was on the space about 2 or 3 months. So that was great. That was a bit of a buzz there.
So what about the flip side, your kind of biggest failure? Anything that you think that wasn't my greatest moment, or?
Yeah, I think trying to do too much. I qualified as well in a sports therapy as well. So when I was starting out fresh from the degree, I was kind of going in as Mr. Rehab, Mr. S&C, all of this all at once. I think I misanalyzed some injuries. I'm pretty bad on that once, actually. I missed that someone had a complete rupture. But that to me just really shouted out that you can't be everything, and it really has helped in understanding the value of a support team, a background team with you. Do you know what I mean? Or having your physio there, having your nutritionist there. It's great to have the knowledge, but don't expect to be the expert in everything.
So what are the kind of current challenges you're facing? So you're back now in Britain, obviously. Moving on in terms of career-wise, what are the kind of current challenges you're facing in terms of coaching, etc.?
I think kind of getting myself established in the UK a lot, like uh, getting myself trying to get in on the in the weightlifting in the UK or in Britain is kind of where I want to get into. So yeah, the challenges now, I guess, are kind of maybe getting the coaching certificates or kind of getting involved with some good clubs and kind of developing on from there. But modern modern society is based on a lot of reputation, and it's as much success or as much as I developed as a coach over in India. I kind of have to start again over here, and if I want to kind of get involved, I have to understand that have to dig deep and prove that I'm there to do some good.
So, what's next for you in terms of coaching wise, job wise, etc.? What's the plan for the next couple of years?
Well, yeah, so I've taken up a new position with a youth charity in Coventry, which is developing sports programs for youth at risk, engaging them and kind of using the philosophies from sport to kind of give them some values and positive future looking forward. So hopefully I can use this kind of as a platform to develop an academy. I'd love to kind of get down the road where I'm running an academy again, and again, if it could be for youths that don't necessarily have the opportunity, it can be a costly thing to try and achieve in sports or develop in sports. So if we can get to the stage where we're trying to help people that financially can't do it, or even support from coaches or parents or whatever, if we can tap into that area of sports where support is really needed for those who actually have talent, that'd be amazing.
So, any kind of advice or any tips you would give to people out there coaching youth athletes at the moment?
Don't be afraid to trust what you've learned, for whatever education you in the background you've had or experience you've had. Be open-minded to it. Make it fun. You gotta enjoy it at the same time. We all take ourselves very seriously, especially when you're starting out in your career and you're trying to make a point. But I think, kids will see through you. Is one thing. But just be brave and go for it. You'll learn from your mistakes, and that's the only way to do it.
Cool. And any kind of resources, any books that you've read that you think would be useful for coaches to read, or any kind of other resources that you would suggest people have a look at?
I guess I'm more of a kind of a blogger person, but Mick Clegg I'm a big fan of his. So he's like the old Man United S&C coach. He basically developed the whole kind of S&C scene for Man U in their glory days. Not to mention that his whole family are like excellent weightlifters.
Everything, and they powerlifters, strongman, weightlifters, they kind of done it all.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, no, I like Sean as his youngest son as well. Great lifter. So, and his philosophy and I think it's his company and everything. It's like seed of speed. I mean, it's all about power and speed and the essence of that. So, yeah, I mean, especially if that's where you're going, if you're going down that kind of S&C route of speed and power, he's definitely your man.
Any other kind of resources you'd suggest or you can think of?
There's another one by Professor Craig White called Achieve the Impossible. So he's like a performance expert. He's like helped a lot of people with like a lot of sport relief and charity. Like Eddie Izzard running the 52 marathons in 50 days or something like that. Something crazy. And he's helped like a couple of people swim the channel and things like this. So, his whole philosophy is the mental approach and the preparation and, preparing for obstacles, you know what I mean? Because we can all have the best laid plans, but you gotta be able to see the barriers and see how you're gonna get around them. So yeah, that's a great it's a great book there to kind of see how to plan out.
So, for those who might be interested in learning a bit more about you, about the project in India, where can people get in touch, or where can they read more?
Well, I'm on Twitter, Cormac Whelan. Pretty straightforward. There's not too many names like that. And then the organisation in India is Pro Sport Development. So prosportdevelopment.in. They've got lots of projects going on now. So they're working in slums out in Orisa's capital city, Bhubaneswar. So they're doing sports projects there, and they're also working with another really great sports academy down in the south of India called RDT, and that's great. They're doing so much there with cricket and tennis and everything. So yes, pro sport development if you want to kind of know into more about the Indian project.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Good luck with everything in terms of the future. Great to hear about all your kind of experiences, and I'm sure it'll be useful for a lot of people listening or watching.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, see ya.
Bye bye.